Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I want to talk to you about why Call of Duty is one of the least consistent gaming franchises on the planet. If you've been a CoD player for more than a decade now, then you've probably felt the emotional roller coaster that is moving from a good game to a bad game the next year and then back to a good game the year after that. This series gets people to keep coming back because when Call of Duty is good, it's extremely good. If you were to, say, take a look at the highest rated Call of Duty games and just take all of those and look at them as if they were their own franchise, it would be a lot like skimming the icing off of a cake, and it would probably look like the best franchise on the planet, because when Call of Duty hits, it hits so good and so hard. But if you do the opposite and take a sample of the worst Call of Duty games, it would probably taste more like hot dog water. And because of this, I think Call of Duty has a major consistency problem. Instead of describing the game as icing or hot dog water, it's a little bit more like Birdie Bot's every flavored jelly beans, but you can only try one bean per year, and that's the flavor you get all year. Imagine if Birdie Bot's was a subscription service, and one year you just got the vomit bean, so every week you get vomit beans, and that's all that you get for the whole year, and maybe you can go back and maybe you can't. What a mess. This is problematic for gamers as customers because it's hard for them to evaluate the amount of entertainment that they can get out of any given Call of Duty product. Are you going to be playing a 1,000-hour free-to-play Warzone 1 experience that's awesome? Are you going to be playing a $50 buy-in Blackout experience that's great? Or are you going to be playing a Black Ops 4 microtransaction farming nightmare that's expensive and has battle passes and loot boxes and more? Black Ops 4 wasn't really even a game as much as it was a monetary extraction platform that was game themed. And to give an example of all of this, I want to give a quick rundown of all of the Call of Duty games since 2015. And I know there's a lot of OGs here on this channel and in the comments down below that would really want me to hear me talk about Black Ops 1 and 2, the original Modern Warfare, even World at War. But all of those games are over a decade old now. It's been a decade since any of those games have released. And if that makes you feel ancient, well, welcome to the club. It makes me feel old too. The oldest Call of Duty game that's less than a decade old now is Call of Duty Black Ops 3. That's how ancient we all are here. But Black Ops 3 was incredibly hype. It did push some people away with the Omni movement, but the multiplayer was bumping, the campaign was okay, the zombies was amazing, the player numbers were really, really high. It was like maybe the peak of Call of Duty in my opinion. And then the very next year, Infinite Warfare, most disliked trailer of all time. I didn't even play the game, which is a little embarrassing on my end. Viewership went down, players abandoned the game, ratings really low, nobody liked it. The same year we get Modern Warfare Remastered, which kind of gets a sort of middling reception. Then we get World War II, which was broken at launch, and we somehow go down from Infinite Warfare to a game that's broken. Then all the developers get fired, and for the second half of the game they patch it and make it incredibly fun, and it goes up to being like a top 3, top 4 CoD game. Okay, so over the cycle, we've saved it. Now we come back to Black Ops 4, and as I mentioned before, it's not really a game as much as a monetary extraction tool that happens to have some game themes around it. There's battle passes, there's loot boxes, there's the season pass, there's the stuff to do for Blackout, there's all these individual purchases. It was a very expensive game. And the multiplayer was not good. It just was not good. We didn't want the manual healing and the high health and all that. Blackout was great, though. If you were playing the Battle Royale for the first time, that was insane. That was really hype, really peak, really fun. I would still be playing Blackout. Then we get Call of Duty Mobile, which is fantastic. Launches with a ton of features, still really popular and fun. We're going higher and higher here. And then we hit Modern Warfare 2019, which has an amazing campaign, a multiplayer that was initially very appealing, but then turned a lot of people off, and some engine updates that made the game look very pretty. Started off extremely hype, started falling down lower and lower. Then Warzone comes out, extremely hype again. And with successive updates, Warzone gets more and more broken and falls down lower and lower. Black Ops Cold War releases. Is this a reprieve? No, it's a barely finished game with a micro campaign and like 4 or 6 multiplayer maps at launch, and we're playing strike maps that have been cordoned down to like a quarter of their size and goofy stuff. And it was pretty miserable. But then after a series of patches, Black Ops Cold War actually gets pretty good and integrates with Warzone pretty well. And then the very next game is Call of Duty Vanguard, and it just crashes again. Absolute nightmare. We pull it back to mediocre with Modern Warfare 2. It's a pretty good game. It retains people. It's not the best. There's, reasonable criticisms, but people like it. Then we get Warzone 2. Well, Warzone 2 wasn't as popular as Warzone 1. It had a worse movement system, backpack system, the maps weren't as fun. And a big one is all that carryover stuff we thought we were going to keep just went away. You lost all of your loot. Then we get Modern Warfare 3. Well, that didn't go very well. It went okay. It's like a 3 out of 10, retained some people. Warzone Mobile, launched, very hype. 3 months later, very not hype. Then we're back to Black Ops 6. Very hype launch. 3 months later, very not hype game. Even in the same game, not even game to game, within the same game, the quality can go wildly up and down depending on patches and who's in charge of things. And I did that I know that was like probably 3 or 4 minutes of me talking about old games. I did that as fast as I could because I didn't want this entire video to just be like a giant flashback episode. But hopefully it was enough to give you a sense of the emotional whiplash that you could get if you decided to ride the roller coaster that is this franchise. There's a lot of high highs next to a lot of low lows, and even stacking highs next to stacking lows. It's total chaos out there, and there's not a lot of mids in the mix. Another thing that could be described as a high if you're a console gamer is the Logitech G A50X console headsets. Literally the best console headsets on the market, because as you can see from the pictures on the back of the box, you can plug anything up to this. You can run a PlayStation, a PC, an Xbox, and your mobile phone all at the same time through one base station and mix and match the sounds however you want. It is 10% off if you use code Drifter, links down there below. Best headset you can get if you're a console gamer. So let's move back to the commentary. This degree of inconsistency chases gamers away. For example, Grand Theft Auto doesn't have this problem. Every time they release a product, it's extremely hype. Valorant and Overwatch don't have this problem, but to be fair, they don't do yearly releases, even though Overwatch 2 was a bit of a disaster. But the point being that free-to-play non-yearly releases don't have this sort of inconsistency issue. Battlefield absolutely does, because Battlefield is chasing Call of Duty and varying up their themes and experimenting and pushing the tech. So Battlefield has the same problem CoD does. Dark Souls and Monster Hunter don't seem to have this kind of problem. The Doom franchise certainly doesn't. And I could sit here and list games all day that are part of other franchises, but the point is that said other franchises are, for the most part, much more consistent. I can't think of you know what the only franchise I can think of offhand, maybe we'll add 2, that are as inconsistent as Call of Duty, is 2 Ubisoft ones. I guess that's an insult in and of itself. Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. Those are games, when they're good, they're good, and when they're trash, they're trash. Call of Duty is pretty much the same thing. And because of all of that, it shouldn't be surprising that a lot of other game franchises have a more loyal fan base than Call of Duty does. There's actually a really good analogy to be made comparing game development and running a YouTube channel, which is something I have a little bit of experience in. The number one thing the social media algorithm loves for YouTube channels is consistent engagement. It really rewards you for releasing products of a similar quality in fixed intervals. And that's what I did. For a great many of years, I delivered all of you daily Call of Duty videos. And another part of this is that the vast majority of these videos needed to be the same. You got to stay in your niche. You got to hit that same market over and over again. Or if they're different, they don't need to be different very often. And if they're different, they need to be really good. Well, life doing what it does derailed me, so I can't do daily videos anymore or keep up with gaming as well as I used to. So I had to try some alternative content, and I mixed in inconsistency on this channel. Unsurprisingly, my viewers, which aren't just analogous to customers for Call of Duty, they are literally the customers for Call of Duty, don't always consistently tune in because what I offer is inconsistent. And Call of Duty is doing the same thing. Those people that are fans of me and fans of Call of Duty are experiencing inconsistency from both of us and maybe not tuning into Call of Duty as much as they used to. The series has not put out a consistent streak of good titles in probably over a decade. And all of the release windows have been smashed together really bad thanks to the advent of battle passes and seasons. I will say the yearly release window has been extremely consistent, but everything around it has been completely chaotic. For example, Warzone, Zombies, and Mobile are all operating on completely different timings, so we'll get like a multiplayer update, and then a few weeks later a Warzone, and then a few weeks later a Zombies, then a few weeks later a Mobile, and then a few weeks later it's multiplayer again, and the cycle just goes so fast, and there's never like really big individual days anymore. And the consistency of product quality across those alternative modes is also pretty wild. Like Warzone Mobile being really hype, and then almost dying out now. I don't know a lot of people that actually play Warzone Mobile. But anyway, I can absolutely understand why some gamers are dipping out and why some people are saying they're totally done with this franchise. I've talked a lot of nonsense, haven't offered a lot of fixes. It feels a little wrong, so I'll offer a small one that I know is too little, too late, and not financially viable. And the short one is, I think Call of Duty needs more time to cook. This brand has done truly incredible things over the last 2 decades and released multiple new games every year for almost 20 years straight, which is extremely impressive, but also completely unsustainable in the modern gaming market, and maybe even counterproductive as it contributes to audience fatigue. I would much rather see Call of Duty come out every 2 or 3 years and be extremely high quality every 2 or 3 years than I would get a new theme for the game every year with the same old bugs. I don't really think that'll ever happen because the economics of the situation necessitate a yearly release schedule for Activision and for their shareholders. But just in fantasy land, imagine what it would be like if the Call of Duty teams, the various studios, developers, publishers, whatever, got a 2-year break. You just injected 2 years into their dev cycle. We could get all 3 studios coming together on an actual unified engine instead of kind of doing that and rolling forward and back between products. There could be long-term planning for content carryover and releases between games, something more consistent there. More consistent feature integration, more consistent movement and mechanics that could be standardized and maybe tweaked every year instead of overhauled into Omni movement. There could be time to solve massive technical issues or do massive technical upgrades to both the engine performance and to the servers on the back end, which I have been informed are actually just a couple of elderly hamsters running as fast as their little feet will allow them in little wheels to generate some electricity. The servers are bad. That's the joke, right? Like, we could actually fix the servers. We could fix the engine. A lot of these things could be fixed. You could streamline the stories and the campaigns. You could fully integrate the zombies across the brands. I think the Call of Duty developers are quite talented. They just need time. They genuinely need time to sort out all of these problems. And there's almost a 0% chance they're going to get that time because it looks like the yearly release schedule is still going strong because that makes the most money, which means this ride is going to stay inconsistent. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.